Welcome to the home of the awakening soul. My name is Ronnie B., spiritual mentor and coach. Do you feel as though your life is false? Are you craving meaning and purpose? Are you asking those deep questions? Well, I can tell you, you're not alone. In this time in epic proportion, the collective are purging for new life. We are thirsting for authenticity and truth. We deeply want to understand who we truly are. We want to feel more wonder and curiosity. We want to live in true alignment of who we are. This podcast is a step-by-step journey in which we will meet exceptional individuals who will lead us in awareness. An awareness that we have been sleepwalking through life attached to endless thoughts in our minds. We are powerful co-creators of our life experiences. The most painful thing we will have to let go is the old version of ourselves. Let's get ready to awaken our purpose. Be prepared to see, feel, and hear insights. Are you ready? Are you awake? Are you spiritually awake? There is something higher you need to know. Welcome to the home of the awakening soul. This is Ronnie B. Our special guest today is Dahlya Brown Shook. She is the owner and CEO of Holistic Medical Healing. She is a regulation specialist, trauma-informed specialist, and medical intuitive who uses a multidimensional approach to healing with diverse training to facilitate mind, body, and spirit integration. Dahlya is a bridge to the science and the magical modalities to teach others to regulate their nervous system, to feel safe in your own body, so that that person with the sensitive nervous system can truly thrive, heal, and transcend beyond self-imposed and limiting boundaries to create a life beyond imagination. Some of her professional training includes Board Certified Occupational Therapist, Certified Integrative Medicine for Mental Health, Trauma Specialist, and a Holistic Health Coach. Dahlya transitioned out of the healthcare model to provide clients with rapid healing. Whole body healing is a puzzle, and Dahlya puts those pieces together to offer her clients radical transformations. Let's welcome Dahlya.
Oh, I am wonderful. It is an honor to be here with you.
I just feel as if you were my soul sister. I mean, just intertwining in our emails, it was incredibly beautiful. And I'm just glad to have you here. Truly.
It really was spirit-led when I found your email in my junk when I woke up in the middle of the night. And I was like, I can't sleep. Spirit has woken me up. What am I going to do? And, I never empty out my emails. It's something that just kind of gets really full. It's like, I'm just going to check out my junk. I don't know why. And there you were. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Well, thank you. Now you're here. So this is a huge transformation. So Dahlya, can you share your own story to where you are now?
It's always the first question. And I come from a very long lineage of mystics and a very long lineage that I recently just found out about that, which helps me anchor in even more into how I came to be in this 3D form and my journey that my soul has taken in order for me to get to where I am right now. And I'm no different than everybody else. Everyone has a story. Everyone has their pain place. Everyone has their pleasure place. For me, in this 3D form, when I was an infant, I had a near-death experience where I stopped breathing.
Wow.
And that set my entire life up, my entire childhood, the beginning of my adulthood, to really question, I know now, but it was me not really wanting to be here on this earth. And knowing what I know now, being a starseed, having so many channeling capabilities, like many starseeds out there, I I went down this path of, even though, I had a great childhood, there was a lot of love, there was some, maladaptive and healthy attachment styles with parenting and siblings. I still went down this path of this being a very highly empathetic person, and that turned inward. And I ended up turning it on myself, not knowing anything. And when I was a teenager, I got diagnosed with multiple mental health diagnoses. And to back up a little bit, when I was an infant, I found a regulation technique, a self-soothing technique called trichotillomania, which is compulsive hair pulling. And I started pulling out my hair as a 12-month-old. And it was a way to self-soothe. And so fast forward, there was always this need within my body, this need in my nervous system to find regulation, because there was so much happening inside. I was so sensitive to everything outside of myself that it was like, that was my hard place, which then became my wisdom place, because I was so highly supported with my family to help me find success. And I hate to say it like this, but it is the truth. For the first, probably up until about 28 years old, life seemed really hard. And my first spiritual awakening was when I was a teenager doing yoga, and I felt myself floating during yoga, and I thought it was actually drug induced. And so I would chase that high repeatedly. And so this led me down this path of really looking outside of myself to find nourishment, to find emotional safety, when the only place that emotional resilience and that safety can come from is within. And my first career was an artist. That was my undergraduate degree. And then I went back to school later on in my life, and I got a master's degree and started practicing my master's degree. And this is where I learned so much about sensory regulation, neurological intuition, about the body, the brain, how it all comes together. And I loved my life. I loved my career. I loved how I impacted people and how I helped transform their lives. And I did that in the system of the medical model, not knowing anything about this intuitiveness, even though my grandmother read tea leaves. There were stories of psychics. There were stories, but it was so taboo and hush hush. And my family, like many others, we had a lot of hush hush skeletons in our closet that we didn't talk about.
Yes.
And it's so, I love astrology. I love using human design because, and I'm not trained in either of those, by the way. I've just dabbled a lot, and I have friends and mentors who mentor me in that. But knowing what I know now, 3 years ago, it was written in my chart that my life was going to transform, and I was going to step into who I was meant to be in this world, on this planet, at this time, in order to help provide support for others to find their regulation, to combine the feminine and the masculine, to combine all of these different energies. And what that required was for my life to literally completely transform.
Can I just stop you there for a minute? Because
Please,
I'm
go
just
ahead.
shivering. I'm like, wow, wow, wow. I completely hear you. Keep going. It's amazing.
No, oh my
Wow.
gosh.
I feel it in my core.
It's taken me so long to get here. And knowing what my purpose is, and knowing how watching my clients transform in ways that they never imagined possible to take their power back, is because I've had to do it over and over and over and over. And I am such the nerd that I learned how to do it through science to help others. And everything I teach is based in the brain and the spirituality, and how to combine this multidimensional approach to help people heal. But this all happened because, very long story short, is my college sweetheart from over 20 years ago when I was an artist reached out to me for my 40th birthday, and we fell back in love. And because he has children and shared custody, I had the only option if we wanted to be together was for me to pick up everything, transition from my old home, which was in Texas, in my safety cocoon of my healthcare profession and this incredible life that I had created for myself, to the East Coast and become a full-time stepmom and become a newlywed. And we had a COVID wedding, and this all happened during the pandemic. And then I found myself, my dog and I, in a trauma response for 18 months because nobody, there's no manual on step parenting. And they, are young and all of those dynamics. And I found myself going through the same patterns that I went through when I was 15 years old, and the same patterns that I went through when I was 23 years old. And through a series of very spiritually aligned happenings, I realized that this trauma was triggered because of this trauma that happened when I was an infant. And since learning all of this, I have become trauma informed from a variety of different resources. It broke me open so that I could fill those places with gold that would empower me to step into my gifts and my voice in a way that I always wanted to, but was scared to. And the relief and the release and the freedom and the empowerment and the business that came with that, I never would have imagined stepping out of healthcare into coaching. And it has just completely activated me to learn how to channel light language, how to read other people, how to become the medical intuitive, and how to use all of my gifts to really help people heal quantumly in very short periods of time, where in the old paradigm of healthcare would have taken decades. And I watch it over and over. So that's how I got here.
And I was just going to ask you, how do you bridge the science and the magical modalities to teach others to regulate their nervous system, to feel safe in their own body?
Yeah. So I have a variety of different programs where I teach people. And there's so much information out there, right? So what that means is this multidimensional approach. It means being the intuitive. I also use the Akashic records with my clients. And so we will go into the records, and many times the messages that are there are modalities that I know how to help teach them so that they can then regulate. And so it's this very intuitive guidance where I'm talking to my guides. I am talking to their guides. I am bringing in the spirits, the spirit realm. And then when I look at, for example, open centers in human design or people's purpose on the planet, if, for example, you have open centers, these are your wisdom centers. That's what one of my mentors says. They're wisdom centers because it's an activation, an opportunity to learn. And so I use then these science tools to help activate those wisdom centers so that the channeling can come even better, which then activates their intuition. When we activate intuition, we activate the confidence and the trust. And trust is one of those core wounds that people always go back to, that gets in their way, that they don't trust themselves enough. And that's why it's so powerful.
It's so beautiful how you stated. It's amazing. Healing. Can you define that with your own heart?
Oh, goodness. The ability to trust. The ability to trust your body, that it can, your body, your brain, your spirits, that it can and is actually built to repair itself. Cellular repair, neural reprogramming. When I think about healing, and this is just my brain, when I think about healing, I think about neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire, reprogram. And here's the thing, science has taken it so far and we keep learning so much more, but the spiritual realm has so much more opportunity. And so when we can guide somebody inward to trust their cells, to trust their choices, to trust their voice, to trust their thoughts, while healing anything getting in their way, their trauma, their limiting beliefs, their childhood, challenges, this is where healing happens. It happens with one and the other together. And I'll say that because I see a lot of people doing one side of it or the other side of it, but they're not bringing it together.
Mm-hmm.
And then it takes a really long time. And they think that they're doing all the things right. It's just not integrated. So healing is integration.
And it's funny, my next question was, with your own intuitive gifts, how was the transition from healthcare in providing now what you do with your clients in healing their radical transformations?
A little excruciating. Mostly because I was so tied to the evidence-based practice. I was so tied to the protocols. There's so much programming around this way. This way is the way that works. This is the protocol. If you go off of the protocol, it's not going to work. So how do we transition that? Is we bring in the wisdom of the body. We bring in your wisdom, your intuitiveness with my assist to see what's getting in your way and then how to help. That is how we bridge, right? But I will tell you, it took me a lot of layers to excavate because I was very attached to that paradigm. My father is a retired neurologist. He's absolutely brilliant. Everything is so like science-based. If you have a problem, you have a medicine. There is so much medicine out there. Some of them but there's plant medicine, there's intuitive medicine, there's psychic medicine, there's light language medicine. That's how we integrate. It's not just take a pill and go on your merry way.
Wow. Oh, this is amazing. This is so good. Can we now speak about emotional resilience? And how do we realize we are up against something specific? When do we need to seek the support to get through that block?
I think we always need to seek support, honestly. Well, let me rephrase. I think many times the challenge with emotional resilience, which by the way is my favorite topic out there because emotional resilience is exactly where it's at. The challenge with it is people read all the books, they'll listen to all the podcasts, they will start practicing on themselves, use themselves as their own little guinea pig. And the challenge is we have things like the second brain, that gut microbiome connection. It has everything to do with emotional resilience. People discount the impact that chemicals, neurotoxins have on emotional resilience. And this may take us on a different path, but answering your question, this is why it's so critical to get support through the process, because your brain, your body, my brain, my body, it's all unique.
Mm-hmm.
And we do a disservice to ourselves when we buy a manual, follow it, and expect to have the results that other people have.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And so it really takes this, we're not objective about ourselves. That's the very long story short. We just are not objective, right? We are very subjective. We are very emotionally driven. And if emotional resilience is something that people are, challenged with, it usually comes from a childhood wound. And many times we are just not awake enough to pinpoint the exact thing that's in the way. Because even if you know that core wound, it manifests in so many different areas. And it takes somebody outside of ourselves to be like, oh, you're doing it again. Do you recognize this? And they're like, oh my gosh, didn't even know. It didn't even make those connections. And that's part of my gift is I am very, very keen and in tune to making those connections that most people don't connect.
How can we transform trauma? As many have had this trauma since childhood and also ancestral lineage.
This is such a good question.
I feel my guides were all talking to me last night for you.
Oh my gosh, so funny. You have no idea. My star chart right now for this beginning of 2023 was working on money stories and working on ancestral trauma. And I have I'm coming off a vacation with one of my brothers, and we were a bit estranged. And he was one of my favorite brothers. You're not supposed to have favorites, but we were just really, really close. And the ancestral trauma goes through everybody, right? It hits everybody differently. How do we transform it? We come with courage. We come with strength. We come with determination that we're not going to let it get in our way. And we are taking on this. If people are experiencing ancestral trauma and they are aware of it, it is now your time to heal it. When we heal it and we start to do it for ourselves, it will trickle out to other people in our family. It will also trickle down to any family members, any kids, anything else like that. And that is how doing your own healing for ancestral trauma is exactly how you release yourself from it.
Can I just say something right there? So many people don't even realize that they have this ancestral trauma. And that's why I think podcasts stating this to help others work with their healing is so important.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Go right ahead.
And no, you bring up a really good point, because here's the thing. Here's a great example. There was one day, probably a few months ago, when it was a Friday. I could not get myself together. I was trying all my tools, and I'm like, it's like that thought. It's like, what's wrong with me? Right? That's the brain thought. I'm like, what is going on? And I just couldn't seem to get myself literally off of the couch. My energy was drained. Something was going on. I ended up I've shared this story with my mother. I spoke to my mother that afternoon. I'm like, how are you doing? And she was like, I've been in bed all day. I'm like, of course you've been. I couldn't seem to get myself off of the couch. That's ancestral trauma. It wasn't mine, but it was acting out in my body, in my life, in my day. And if I didn't know any better, I would, what is really wrong when it actually wasn't mine. And I think that's the beauty of ancestral trauma, is when people start to recognize, and I see this in my clients all the time. There's one client in particular that I'm thinking of, because she's just had these aha moments after moment after moment. And this is part of I have an emotional resilience program that is 6 months long. And she is finally connecting these dots on her own, which is what I love teaching people how to do, so that you don't become that codependent with a coach. That's not the idea. I want people to start to recognize where it's showing up for them. And now she is realizing that when she's feeling a certain way, she knows it has more to do with her mother or her father. And this is beautiful, because it shifts the perspective. When we shift the perspective, we can get back into an action mode, even if that action mode is movement medicine, even if it's going to the gym. Even like, action doesn't necessarily have to mean like a checklist where you do everything, even though I love those. But that's not, we can transition through that phase in a variety of different ways, depending on the season in your life and the season in your healing journey.
Overworking our system is something that so many of us cannot stop doing, especially in a fast-paced lifestyle. How may we get the tools to quiet the mind, healing, and lasting change?
We make a commitment to ourselves. We make a commitment, and we invest, honestly, time, energy, and money to heal the relationship that is most important, which is the relationship with ourselves. When we heal that, we become so much more powerful. And so it takes that commitment, and it gets easier every single day that you do it. It's just like that neural reprogramming that I mentioned. The more you do it, the easier it gets. So, and this is just like making change in anything. Right when you get started, it seems challenging. It seems hard. It may feel overwhelming. That is your nervous system trying to calibrate to a new level. And when we can regulate your nervous system as you're calibrating to this new level, this isn't just about trauma. It's also about building wealth. It's also about building a business. It's about building a life. Each time we move forward and ascend into something new, it's a new calibration. And we have to give our body and our brain time.
And it's amazing what the body does do with different pains we have. I mean, many have assumptions. Oh, I have a pain, I have to go to the doctor. But sometimes that pain is your own emotions. And in this journey, I've learned that. And it's powerful.
I'm so glad that you've learned that, because it's a powerful learning. What I would encourage you to also evaluate is, when you have that pain, is it yours?
Exactly.
Because I had a huge aha, realizing that I've had this throughout most of my life. But I went to a manifestation retreat where I was leading movement medicine with one of my own coaches. And we were doing a lot of trauma healing. It was absolutely beautiful. But I walk into this room, it's the introduction, and immediately I have this pain in my body. And of course, I go through my own checklist. Did I eat dairy? Have I had gluten? Am I hydrated? Did I sleep? Have I moved? Right? Like, these all foundational tools.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I've done everything right. And then I realized it wasn't mine. It was everybody else in the room. And then I started doing some internal light language on myself, some massage, some other things. I asked one of my healing friends to help protect my energy. I teach a lot about energetic boundaries in my programs, because most people who find me, they are highly sensitive, they are empathetic, and they are very sensitive to other people as well. And so teaching you how to protect your boundaries and create that force field and that shield so that you're not taking in everybody else's, that's critical. And it gets so easy. It becomes second nature. And then we can really live from our purpose.
Yes. Mental health. It's something that is very important to me, especially during this time, few years of COVID, and the importance of understanding it. At the same time, many individuals are given these labels, these different labels of anxiety and depression. What is your approach to healing someone with this challenge?
I have intake questionnaires. I have some assessments, because I always want to gather data. I will get in touch with my guides. I will do some energy clearing to make sure that I'm also a clear channel when I'm working with somebody. Mental health is something that is near and dear to my heart, because that was my story. I came from being a patient in the mental health realm with multiple diagnoses, being on antidepressants and anxiety meds for over 25 years. And that, I mean, that's a whole different conversation on how that taxes your system, and changes your brain patterns and changes your neurotransmitters. So me teaching people how to create happy neurotransmitters on their own without support, or if they do need support, there's so many different supports out there. There's a lot of nutritional support. There's a lot of supplement support. I'm not anti-medicine at all. Some people do need it, but there's also people who use it as a crutch, and it's still not doing enough. I think for me, one of those paradigms that I had to shift was not being attached to that label. I am not my depression, here in air quotes. I am not my hair pulling. Let's not claim a label, especially if you're a highly sensitive, intuitive empath, because that means you're just susceptible to everybody else's chaos as well. So, right. And that's what I have seen so often is people get misdiagnosed who are empaths, who are light workers, who are psychics because they hear things, they see things, they feel things.
And look at our children now. Our children are being labeled everything.
It's such a disservice. And it doesn't mean it's not real because we have to validate that. However, when we look at the traditional mental health treatment protocol, which is the same as heart disease, it is the same as a musculoskeletal disorder. You go to the doctor, you get a medicine, you go see them once a week, and you hope for the best. No, that is not how mental health is healed. And that's why in my program specifically, I love that you brought up children because I have developed programs that I work with kids in one program. I work with adults in another program. I work with entrepreneurs, who want to regulate their nervous system in other programs. But the family one specifically, when I'm working with kids, I work with the parents as well, because that is part of the missing piece. And I use this very much a multidimensional approach. We look at supplementation. We look at toxins. We look at all of the things that can overload the brain's mental health to start having it present itself in these mental health ways. And what we forget is that not only have we gone through a collective global pandemic that is traumatizing and triggering, we also live in a society that is a highly dopamine receptor society, meaning our screens, this instant gratification, Instacart, Amazon, I use them all. However, with the kids, it starts shifting your neurotransmitters. And so you're taking away from your body.
Look at the social media as well.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons, like for my social media, I really pride myself on just being honest and vulnerable and being very, very real, because there's so much comparison mode. There's so much everything else. And we have to empower people to be who they are in all of their beauty. Even if there is a diagnosis, even if you are tied to a label, what I recommend is don't live your life from that label, right? Somebody who has a prosthetic leg, and I used to work in rehabilitation, they can still run a marathon. They don't let that hold them back. And what I see in the mental health realm, is it holds them back from moving forward. And that's a disservice. I could go on and on about mental health. I mean,
it's so important to me. Feel free to do so. It's very important to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's so much intertwining with mental health. One of my clients, she's oh my gosh, there's so many people, but there's so many people go down that mental health route, and then they get tied to the I am broken and I can't get fixed. And then you go seek a professional, and the professional is like, you have to do this and this and this and this. And it's so overwhelming, they don't know where to begin first. And that's why in almost every single one of my programs, I offer Voxer support, which is a walkie-talkie app, because it's in the moment support where people need help. They
Amazing.
need somebody outside of themselves. So this isn't a one time a week session and then go on your merry way. No, where people need help is like when they're getting out of bed and their brain is hijacking themselves already. So if they contact me and I help walk them through it, they're like, okay, I can do this. And they know that they're not alone. Like this is just how the brain operates. And that's the important thing to know.
It's so beautiful you said that they know you're there, because it's like, for myself, it's like tomorrow's a brand new day. They just need to know that so they can just get to tomorrow.
Yeah, I love that. And it's not just tomorrow.
Exactly.
In 3 hours, it's a brand new hour. I mean, we can shift so quickly when we get out of our head, when we get back in our body, and when we connect to spirit. And so many people get stuck in the how. And that's why having somebody to hold you accountable and to hold your hand, and sometimes that's very like a lot of hand holding in the beginning, especially when it has to do with mental health. And then it's less hand holding as their confidence grows, as their intuition grows. And that's what I want to see fostered in people, so that they're not dependent on a broken system of healthcare to help them have resilience.
For yourself and your psychic abilities, how was that in welcoming that to what you're doing now? Did you always know you had that ability? Like for myself, I think I've hid it for so long. And then it came to a point that I was just like, it's time. I need to work with this.
It was through a series of very aligned steps that came in for me to guide me into my intuition, my psychic abilities. I had signed up for a mastermind a couple of years ago, and it talked about magic, it talked about psychic, it talked about money, it talked about the feminine. And I remember sharing it with my mother, and I was like, Mom, I signed up for a psychic mastermind. And she literally told me she had just journaled. She had had a dream about me. She woke up, she journaled, and it was something about me stepping into psychic abilities. Stepping in a way that she tried, but never had the courage or the right support to do that. And it was almost like the validation that I needed.
Mm.
And I remember talking with my husband at the time, because that word psychic, first off, one of my coaches who is called me psychic right off of the bat. And I was like, that doesn't feel good. The very first time, it probably took me about 6 months for me to be like, okay. And then I started noticing how my clients were transforming so much quicker than when I was in healthcare. And I would message her, and I would message her like a client success that was just completely out of the traditional realm of healing. And she was like, Dahlya, you're a magician. And I was like, I am a magician.
That's great.
Right? Like, I've been telling you this for months. I'm like, I know. But that's really like, that's hard to swallow. She was like, just keep doing what you're doing. And then I started stepping into even more psychic gifts. And just like many people, one of my psychic gifts of channeling light language came because I was healing my dog from her trauma before I had to put her down and let her transition to the next phase. So it wasn't for me very much. That's like the story of my life. So much for other people. It was to help her soul heal as much as I could. And this was through the Akashic records. And this was through another channel, through another channeler who had told me that me channeling the light language for her was going to help activate my gifts even more to help other people heal. And now I'm teaching light language in somebody's magic school. I mean, it's so interesting and dynamic and seriously out there. And I love it because it doesn't make sense. And I have embraced that.
But that's okay. That's just okay.
The science realm makes sense. And I want to embrace the part that doesn't.
Relationships. Doesn't it start within ourselves to see what is reflecting outwards to who is in our lives? Can you let us know your thoughts?
Our relationships are a mirror. Our relationships are a mirror for what is in a way often unhealed in us. And so many people, especially in relationships, how do I fix the other person? How do I help them? How do I help them heal? And the answer is always, you work on yourselves. You work on yourself. You show by example. That is how we learn. That is how children learn, by demonstration. And so when we are talking about healing relationships, we have to heal that relationship within ourselves. And many times that relationship within ourselves comes from the attachment styles from our parents and our past life traumas and our ancestral trauma. And so it goes back to where we started, which was this healing. That's how we end up healing relationships. And I'll from one of my own examples, raising somebody else's kids as my own, an 11 and a 13-year-old who, I mean, my background is in neurology and pediatrics and neuroscience, and I can rattle off every single developmental milestone out there. And I had these two children telling me I knew nothing about children. I mean, seriously, that I was an awful.
That's kids for you.
Seriously. And it triggered every single thing inside me. I was like, who do they think they are? But you hear that enough over and over and over, and it's the same thing over every single day. I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, maybe I'm awful in this role. Like, I always knew I'd be an amazing mother. But when you have children that tell you are awful at it, which they don't anymore, and I'm getting to the point, I promise, that relationship dynamic activated an opportunity for the old depression from 16 years old, the old not wanting to be here on this planet because I tried to escape when I was 12 months old, came back in, and it came back with a vengeance. And I found myself, and literally, I mean, this is in the last 3 years, going through cycles of depression, what looked like depressions. It's very much like the soul, but it was happening every 3 months, which was my old pattern over 20 years ago. And I'm telling my husband, I'm like, I'm not okay with this situation. Like, this is a roller coaster. Once you've been on the right side of feeling amazing and empowered and making a life for yourself, when you come from that place of anxiety and depression and not wanting to really live and seeking love and feeling good from outside yourself, when this comes back in, it's like, no. And that's when I invested, and my husband is so good because, and I'll just tell you, like, it got really dark. It got really scary. We talked a lot about divorce in these first 18 months, which you'd never imagine for newlyweds. And because our dogs were fighting, I mean, it was just so much trauma, right? I wasn't able to make friends because it was still in lockdown mode with COVID. I had moved. Everything that felt safe became unsettled, and every single foundation that keeps someone safe literally was removed from my life, all for love. And I'm telling my husband, I'm like, anyone in their right mind in the situation that I am in would go to a psychiatrist and get put on a medicine. He was like, okay, but what's your diet like? He's heard enough about me, right? He's learned enough, and he was like, but what are your other alternatives? Because I know that's not what you really want to do. I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. But I was seriously where I was when I was 15 years old. And I'm telling you all this because immediately it was like, I had to reach out to my support system. And one of those was one of my other brothers. And he was my accountability person for a while. And I hired a new coach. And it's just.
Can I just say, was it just looking at your own shadow?
It was looking at all those shadow parts that activated the hair pulling, that had triggered the depression, the anxiety, all of the ancestral trauma, all of the attachment for me, it was really like things that happened to me at 12 months old. And it was healing trauma, which is why I've gotten over certified now in trauma-informed treatments, because that's where it's at. And as soon as I started doing this, everything started to lift. And it hasn't come back since. But here's the thing. When it does, it's not the same. It's not as deep. It's not as dark. When it does, I actually embrace it. So I'm not scared of it. So many people in the mental health realm are scared of that place because of where it will take them. For me, it used to be a dark, deep hole that spiraled down and there was no way out. Now I embrace it and I'm like curious. What is coming up inside of me that needs to get healed more? And as soon as I tune into that, and of course, there's oracle cards and there's pendulums and there's spirit guides and there's a trauma coach and it's always the same core wounds. And once I started going down this path, so now when that stuff comes up, now I actually embrace the hardest person is my stepdaughter. When I embrace the challenging relationship between she and I, she's bringing up my sisterhood wound. That's what needs to get healed. She doesn't.
It sounds like my son. He could do that to me.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's nothing like having children or a significant other to be our mirror for what we need to heal. And so many times people are like, you need to fix yourself. And it's not about them. It's actually about us. Mm-hmm. That was a very long answer to the real.
No. It's just perfect. And it leads perfectly into the next question. How do we go from avoidance to an empowering presence in our lives?
Avoidance is very much like stuffing, ignoring, putting your feelings on the shelf, putting the issue on the shelf, and holding off to deal with it. I've seen that happen with friends. When they do that, one friend in particular I'm thinking of, well, multiple people, they end up finding themselves like checked into a psychiatric ward. You can't put it on the shelf. You can't avoid it. It will keep coming back. And if it is coming up, it is an opportunity to deal with it, to heal it, to move through it so that it's no longer a trigger. We do it with support. I hate saying it like this, but it's like we can't do it on our own. We shouldn't have to do it on our own. And not only that, we need professionals who know how, who do have training, who are qualified. Because there's a lot of people out there who are just throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping it sticks. And that's no way to become empowered. Empowered is working with somebody who you know you have full confidence in, so that you can follow their recommendations and start to see things start to shift. Your brain needs that dopamine to see the confidence in the result that, okay, wait, I dealt with this and now I'm feeling amazing because I did this and now I can do it again. And so we tackle, it depends on the person, what they're willing to do, how fast and furious or, their own process. And I don't ever recommend people go super fast and furious, actually, because it will dysregulate your nervous system in the process. And that's where I've had people come to me in the state where it's like they've done so much trauma healing, but they're not regulated. And they did trauma healing in a dysregulated state. That's not the goal, because that's not empowering. It's disempowering. And that is, I have someone in my Reconnect program. This is my 3-month program for the highly sensitive, empathetic person, because we have to, your body and your brain needs to feel like something positive is coming from it. We can't be operating from a place of pain all the time. That's not empowering. It will steal the energy. And so how we do it is we stay accountable and we check in, right? If we hire someone, check in with them. Use them. And that's what I tell everybody in my programs. I'm like, use our Facebook group. Please let me hold your hand through this so that you don't do it alone, so that you can find the empowerment. You can see the celebration even when it's challenging. We have to feel that. We have to embody the celebration, that dopamine. We have to embody it. That's how we become empowered.
It's so interesting you're speaking on this, because I was about to ask, when it comes to self-love and self-worth, many self-sabotage themselves, not ever knowing that they are doing it to themselves. How can we cultivate we are love?
By learning how to reparent ourselves, by learning how to give ourselves the validation that we are seeking outside of ourselves. And you're right. So many people self-sabotage and they have no idea. And they're trying so hard. And then they're disempowered. And then they think that they're never going to get out of this cycle. And so how we do it is by healing the chakras, by healing our voice, by healing our intuition, by healing our gut. Like, this is the multidimensional approach to cultivating self-love and self-worth. And, I love one podcast that I was on. She called me like the self-love queen, like self-love embodied, which if you knew me 20 years ago, that is not the person that you would have said that to. And it's because I've had this desire to love myself the way my grandmother saw me.
Oh.
You know that feeling. To love yourself unconditionally the way that your dog sees you. When we can start to see ourselves and speak to ourselves, and that's critical, the way we talk to ourselves. When people start to become aware, and I would encourage any of your listeners, if they're listening to this, start listening to how you're talking to yourselves. And when you need help, ask for help. And if you don't have a coach, if you don't have somebody that you're like working with, ask your guides. Let them start communicating and start to watch the pieces fall into place. And just don't question it. Just keep following. Don't discount it. Trust it and keep moving forward.
Taking our power back. Once we put in the inner work, where can we go from here?
Oh, anywhere. The sky's the limit.
Let's go.
It's, where your soul, where your intuition guides you. When you've done that work, you know where to go next. It's a matter of trusting that intuition, which also brings us back to where we started. The trust, the confidence, and to recognize that the work in a way is almost never done, but there is a base. It's creating new baselines. So when you've done work, you have a new baseline, right? And you just want to keep getting healthier, stronger, better, whatever that looks, more aligned. And really allowing and listening to that voice, right? When you have that self-love, you will protect that energy at all costs, meaning your boundaries get really strong and you become unavailable to allow somebody else to steal your joy, to steal your power, to steal any of that, which 20 years from now, my stepdaughter is totally going to be listening to this podcast. But that's where I'm at with her, is just not allowing her stuff to get in our way. She can have her drama. She can have her feelings. She needs to have her feelings, and they need to be validated because they are right. But they don't need to influence everybody around her. And that has to do with us holding true to our boundaries and allowing us to trust our intuition so that we can keep moving forward. Because that is where this quantum expansion happens. And when you do that, the universe always responds, and responds in amazing ways where you're just like, oh my gosh, you are listening. Thank you. And then feeling that gratitude, celebrating the wins, and really feeling that energetically within your body, because your body has all the answers.
For 2023, many like to set their goals for the new year. Do you believe it works? Or does it just complicate your own healing process?
This could be like a whole other topic. So there is Welcome to my answers. There is a place in your brain called the reticular activating system. If you are looking to buy a red car, you will see red cars everywhere because it's a goal of yours. So I have completed vision boarding for almost a decade now, every single year, sometimes twice a year. And I actually have, it's funny, I have an ascension elevator that I have put together for people, and it's been modified over the years, but this is work that I've done over and over and over to help people do exactly what you just asked about. So here's the thing. Many people will make goals and they don't do anything with them, and they're like, yep, that doesn't work. So no, I journal, I write down on, if you follow me on Instagram or, on, I don't know if it's on my website right now. I probably should put it there, but it's a Ascension Elevator. It's a PDF that you can download. And it's like, what do you want to release from last year? What do you want to bring in? And then it goes through how to create your word for the year. And what do you want to give, have, be, embody, make, earn for 2023 or whatever year, we're in. And then what I always recommend people do is start creating the images of what they want to see. So for example, what I will tell you is every single thing that has been on my vision boards has always come true. From becoming a holistic health coach, from becoming I was like I had superhero OT on one of my boards like many, many years ago. And I was one of the therapists that all the therapists wanted to work with, to collaborate with. I wanted to become yoga certified, and I did. And I wanted to become a surfer girl, and now I live on the beach. I mean, so here's the thing, like we have to be really specific, but when you anchor into that and this is how your brain creates what you want in your world. Is you see it, you feel it, you taste it, and you operate from that place of it already happening. And now you're just waiting for it to come. That's how we do it. We combine the energy of the brain with the body, feeling it, and literally writing a letter to yourself. Like here's a perfect example. Writing a letter to yourself. So for me, it would be, well, let me ask you, what's something you want to create for this year? I'm going to ask you a question.
Building my new business.
Okay. And what is the purpose of your new business?
Helping others heal.
Oh, I love that. How do you want to feel when you've done that? Or as you're doing it? How does that feel?
Incredibly healing for myself.
So, dear Roni, I can't freaking believe it. It's only been 2 months and I have clients, and it has been wildly healing for them and me. And I get up every day knowing that I am supporting my clients in tremendous transformations. And it is healing for everybody, which I love that you said that, because when we can run a business from a regulated state, that's one of my masterminds is for business owners, learning how to regulate their nervous system and mastering their brain finesse so that they operate their business from a place of empowerment rather than worry, fear, or having to check just everything off of a list, because it is a lot to run your own business and it can be quite overwhelming. So, dear Roni, we did it. We did it. We keep doing it over and over and over. Every single week, people are signing up. I love the clients that are coming to me. They are soul-aligned clients, and I love partnering with them.
I feel that. Even you saying that, I feel it.
That's how we create goals. And then you have that letter and you read it.
Oh, I'm getting emotional, you just saying it. Yeah.
And you read it, you feel it, you speak it to yourself. Girl, I'm so freaking proud of you. You've done it. Seriously, like this is how we do it. This is how we do everything. This is embodiment.
Thank you so much for that.
Oh, you are welcome. I'm excited to see what you do.
If there is one word for the collective, what would that be?
Transcend.
Can you expand on that?
There's so much programming that needs to be deprogrammed. And which means transcending our own limiting beliefs, transcending what gets in our way, what we think gets in our way, time, money, experience, education, all those different things are typical. Transcending what other people think we can do, and then allowing our gifts to transcend so that they can heal others. This is transcending into other realms. And not everybody understands this. A lot of people do. I think everyone in your world who's listening to this podcast probably does. But it's transcending into this quantum ability to make things happen a lot quicker. And this is in a way like raising that baseline over and over and over. That's the transcend, right? So here's a perfect example. The PDF that I have for people used to be called the habit tracker. Very, very scientific, very sciencey, vanilla. And I renamed it to the Ascension Elevator because that's what we're actually doing. And we're doing that as a collective. The light workers out there, we are doing that collectively. And we just have to remember that.
How may our listeners find you?
I have a website. It is www.holisticmedicalhealing.com. I am on Instagram at holistic.medical.healing. You can find me on Facebook at Dahlya Brown Shook. I'm sure you'll have everything in the notes.
In the show notes, of course.
Yeah, I have some free offers. Very soon I will have a brain optimization toolkit, which will combine the science and the spiritual to help brain health to ascend. There's a lot of ways to get a hold of me. And if you just go to my website and go to the contact button, you can contact me there. And if you find me on any of the social media, you can just send me a message.
You're such a beautiful soul.
Oh, so are you.
Any last words?
I would love to leave everybody with the message that when we are aligned, when we are a clear channel, anything is possible. That what we think inside our head is limiting, and that there is a limitless potential out there. And many times we just have to get outside of ourselves and sometimes focus on our purpose on the planet and what we're really meant to do. Because it's easy to get sucked back into the energy leaks. And so I would just encourage anybody who is listening to move your body, get into your body, do anything that makes you feel good, that brings you joy. This is how we cultivate our love and our strength and our resilience.
Thank you, Dahlya.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you so much for asking me to be on.
You're so welcome. Well, hello there, my beautiful souls. Always a pleasure to be here for you. I just thank you again for coming by. If you'd like to follow us, join us on Instagram at Home of the Awakening Soul and our Facebook group at Home of the Awakening Soul Podcast. We are now on TikTok, so join us at Home of the Awakening Soul. Please don't forget to subscribe, share with a friend, and please leave us a review. I will leave you with these last words. Trust your own magic. Bye-bye. I love you guys.